Hello, this is the February 11th, 2025 open public meeting of the Needham Library Board of Trustees being held via hybrid format, allowing remote attendance. First, I will take a roll call to confirm that trustees, library staff, and persons anticipated to be on the agenda are present and can hear me. Trustees, Kay Cahill.
Here.
Rob Pettit. Here. Jay Fialkov.
Here.
Michael O'Neill.
Here.
Megan Small, very late. Joshua Small.
Here.
And me, Eric Gray, 5 here. Library staff, Library Director Robert McLean. Here. Assistant Director Diana Fedler. Administrative Specialist Jenna White.
Here.
Program Specialist Galen Dennett.
Here.
Recording Secretary Faith Christie.
Here.
Great. Do we have?
Looks like Megan just showed up.
Oh.
Megan, we just did roll call. Are you here?
I am here, hopefully going to be there very soon, just waiting for childcare to get here.
Do we have any other representatives or attendees this evening? Representatives of the Library Foundation? No. So this meeting is being recorded. If there is a problem that prevents the completion of this meeting, we will reconvene at 7 p.m. on March 11th, 2025. I hereby call this meeting of the Needham Board of Library Trustees to order at 7:03 p.m. Reminder, citizens are welcome to speak at our meetings for up to 3 minutes each, not to exceed a total of 10 minutes. Citizens are encouraged to inform the library director in advance of their intention to speak. Those who provide advance notice will be called upon first. While the board will take public comments under advisement, there may be no opportunity for discussion or debate during this portion of the meeting. Any public comments this evening? Look like it. So moving forward, I request a motion to approve the minutes of the January 14th, 2025 meeting, and then we can discuss. Second, great. So discussion. Yeah.
One is page 3. Just I was wondering if you can, for the public record, that just spacing issues and line breaks on page 3 going to page 4 that are a little bit. Yeah, it makes it a little hard to read.
You talking about the minutes?
The minutes, yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's one section that's a little bit out of control. The margins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Line breaks are sort of in the hot spot. Formatting thing.
I had one other comment.
Okay, did you have
Oh,
more?
sorry.
Well,
No, Kay, finish, please.
Okay, so there's a typo on page 4 under acknowledgement and valuation, line 5. The word area should be AR8. And the last one I had, Jay, you may already have this one that involves your name.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, I'll let you make that one then.
Well, is this section 11?
I have page 6.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Library Foundation.
Yeah.
Somebody might have mentioned that they saw a standing ovation.
That was gay.
Okay, but it wasn't me. Seemed like I was.
Yeah.
I wasn't there.
Gay said that. So, unless
You
Gay
see that?
No, I totally acknowledge that, yes, it was certainly did say it was getting ovation.
So we
First one
turn
I've ever seen here.
J to Gay.
Yes.
Well, just change he to Gail. And that last sentence. All right.
Any other just edits? All right, with Megan remote, we'll do a roll call vote to approve these minutes. So go with Kay Cahill.
Aye.
Aye. Rob Pettit.
Aye.
Jay Fialkov.
Aye.
Michael O'Neill.
Aye.
Megan Small.
Aye.
Joshua Small.
Aye.
And the chair is aye. All right, we've approved the minutes. So moving forward to the director's report.
Thank you. Starting with the Children's Department, there's some exciting highlights from January I wanted to share with you. Great program attendance we had in January, and Awesome Rob had an awesome turnout, 150 attendees for his performance. Lucia spearheaded the creation of an email list for families about what's going on in the children's department. So that mailing list now has 78 families on it, along with school systems. This is really nice. Joe Siebel reached out to us about weeded children's books and repurposing them. So we've worked with her and gave her a whole bunch of books that are now part of the welcome areas of health centers across Boston. So that's a partnership that we hope to continue in the future.
Nice.
So,
Yeah.
and if you want to bring in some PJs, we are collecting PJs as part of the MDLC's PJ drive. It's partnered with the organization Cradles to Crayons. So if you want to bring some PJs, we have a bucket in the children's room we want to fill many times over to send those on to kids who need PJs.
New people.
Yes, please. Yes, please. Moving on, Technical Service Department is still doing lots of great work, heavy weeding and the young adult graphic novel shifting, retelling, and relabeling. A lot of this work has to do with phase one and future phases, the whole moving of collections around and making sure we're ready for construction to start in September. And then the Library of Things, I want to give a shout out to Mimi, who's done a lot of work, practically single-handedly for the Library of Things, adding 39 new items the past month and a half to that collection, and it's been moved to the space where the Lucky Day collection was. Things will shift again later this calendar year as we weed and move collections on the ground floor to make the large print collection more accessible to our patrons. And so things will be shifting. So that's a temporary place for it, but it's a prominent place, which we hope it gets some more attention since we have so many new items there. Moving on to Technology Archives Department, which is our department of one. Danielle has been very busy. She's upgrading public computers from Windows 10 to Windows 11. We've got a new public printer, which she oversaw the installation of, and surprisingly, it went smoothly. That usually doesn't happen in the library, but this was, I think, just an hour where things were down and the public printer was installed and everything was back up. We had planned for at least half a day of having no public computers, but we're pleasantly surprised. So hats off to Danielle for that. As part of one of our action items for this fiscal year, Danielle's working with Sterling that maintains the library's website to overhaul the genealogy local history section of the website to make it more inviting and to put forward our digital collections in a way that is more meaningful for patrons.
I remember working with Sterling at the beginning when we selected them. Yeah, have you been comfortable with how that process is going with their support?
Oh yeah, they're very
Great.
very good. If you look at it now, it's just a lot of text heavy of a list of what we have. Now there'll be more graphics and direct access to the online collections.
We still have a certain number of hours per year for support before you have to pay.
Yes, I don't know how many.
Okay, I'm just curious. Okay.
Yeah,
All right,
as
okay.
part of our annual maintenance
Yeah.
fee, we get a set number of hours for the fiscal year, and if we go beyond that, we have to pay more. Last year, we went beyond it, had to pay a little bit.
Got it.
But right now, we're on track not to overshoot that fee, which I don't know what it is.
Neither.
Just a quick comment on, before you move on, it's just, when Danielle set up and replaced the public computers, I have had, when I collected signatures, more than one person say to me, thank you. Not that it was me who did it, but I said, do you have any ideas, thoughts, or suggestions about the library? And they were very happy about the upgrading of the computers. So got
Okay,
feedback on that. That was really positive.
I'll let Dana know. Thank you.
Yeah.
She's done a lot of work in the past 6 months. Then rounding it out, we have a new phone system, and last week they came back and installed a new PA system. So our announcement system. If you hear it, if you're here for closing announcements, there's a slight echo, and that's because it's a digital new system that is connected to our analog system. So there's a slight delay there.
Is it a problem?
You might hear it say something slight, listen to. But hopefully we'll get that addressed when the system gets replaced. Reference departments. So just piggybacking from the minutes, the Robert Shelley lecture was a big success with 72 people. As I mentioned last month, Jackie Bateman, our reference librarian, digital media specialist, who attended LibLearn X out of Phoenix at the end of January. And these are a few of the seminars that she attended. Erin is great. She's as part of our monthly reports, she provides some really fantastic quotes, which I, have to share with you because they're great and they're infectious. So here about the team room renovation, Erin says, quote, being able to work so closely with the architects throughout the whole team space redesign space has been wonderful. Meeting with the architects this month brought about the addition of color choices and seating selection choices. And then she talks about an opportunity with the high school. So being approached year after year by the high school to continue to participate in their National History Day judging event that happens in February. I was once again approached by one of the high school teachers to help judge the students' work. I had the best time doing it and I learned so much. So these quotes are given to the prompt of what are some successes or things you're happy about this month. So
Right.
moving on to personnel items, we met Liam and Diana last month, so they're old timers at this point. They are up to their eyeballs in work, but happily so, and happily for us too. And then since the last meeting, I met with or attended these meetings that are listed here. One of the more interesting ones was in the middle. Jackie Bateman and I went to Wingate. We went to the independent living facility last Wednesday afternoon and signed residents up for library cards and
Right.
talked about the library and what they have to offer. We're going tomorrow afternoon back, this time to the assisted living facility to do the same thing. So that's great. Their community relations director, Nancy, is fantastic and worked with her a lot and look forward to that partnership.
Do you go over things like listening to audiobooks on Libby and stuff
Yep,
like
that's why Jackie comes.
that?
She's our staff expert on our digital collections and getting people to know how to download them. Yeah, and so,
Yeah, I guess I was gonna ask is the goal for people who can't get themselves here to the library to show them how they can use the library remotely, is that?
our goal is, that's one of the goals, I think more so for tomorrow when we're at the assisted living facility, that would be.
Yeah, okay.
But for anybody, our digital collections are just so vast that it's just a whole new world. As long as they have a library card, they don't need to ever come here.
Right.
And that's fine. We still have a lot to offer them. If they want to add us to their life if they're busy or what have you, but we have a lot. It's been great to meet a lot of people who love this beautiful library and those who just moved in from Virginia a couple weeks ago and are happy to come and visit us. So it's fun to meet some new Needham residents. Another thing here, last Friday, I met with State Representative Josh Tarski, the new state representative for Needham, along with library directors from Dover and Medfield. We had coffee in Medfield and had a great conversation, talking about what we do and challenges we face, whether budgetary or staff. And it was really a good conversation. he's very interested in the work. That's great. And the director, Bethany from Dover, set that up. So that's shout out to Bethany. They had done that in the past with Representative Garland.
Yeah.
Some phase one information. So we had a couple of meetings in January with UTL and Hank and staff. We received chair samples. I think a few trustees, J. Rob and Megan, came and tested them out. So they're gone. We had teens come. Erin had teens on Monday afternoon. They were brought down here, and a bunch of teens tried them out, and she took their inputs, and we sent off all of that input to the architects today. We're going to receive more chairs, so I'll let you know when they come.
First, that one good enough.
Yeah, but also we're going to get two types of gaming chairs for the lounge. That one is we can only fit 4 of it. It has like sort of a wide seat. The other is more narrow. We could fit 5. So 5 is better, but we need to sit on them and test them. Teens do, you know, see how they work.
So you're implying we're not gamers?
Oh, no,
How dare
but
you.
you're not teens.
Yeah.
If I can
We won't
be so bold. as-
Ergonomically.
So that's great.
I guess we're gonna see Michael in the gaming chair in the team room.
So it, make sure it works. That's all.
And Rob, really quickly, what's the next step in terms of review at the finance committee level and other levels for phase one?
So the next bullet, the UTL sent off the construction documents, which are at 80% to the cost estimators. So that'll be the final cost estimation that we'll get before the project goes out to bid, which will happen in March. So that number hopefully will be at or below the 2.386 million or so that we plus 120,000 that we are planning to ask town meeting for. So the finance committee comes in their review of the articles for the warrant for the annual town meeting in May, and so we will be back towards them before them with Hank to go over that capital improvement request of that 2.386 million, which is part of Kate's plan that she did put forward, a plan for that to be accepted and funded through debt in FY26. So it has your stamp of approval. It will go to the board of selectmen, and then that the finance committee will have a separate hearing on that. So by then we'll have the final cost estimate. No, they're still wrapping up the hearings for the operating budget.
So just to that point, I think maybe I don't know if you've talked with them yet at all, but to point out with them that this incremental approach, the whole point of that is to make it a little easier on the taxpayers to do it incrementally and gradually, as opposed to the initial idea was to renovate the library, but that we have adopted this incremental approach specifically to be conservative in terms of cost.
I mean, the incremental approach to the entire
For
project.
the different
Right,
phases.
it's not
This-
like the incremental approach, like we're doing this and then we're meeting with the
no,
architects again, right?
This is our,
Right,
the phase,
Yeah,
team,
the phase thing.
the phase approach, yes.
Which hopefully would be familiar to returning members of the finance committee, because that would have been our presentation last year, right?
And the year before.
In the, well, not the original study. But,
Right, the original study was the whole, all 4 phases, right?
yeah, but when we presented the
Yeah.
capital improvement plan for this design phase, we would have introduced that. You were there, right?
Mhm.
So, but we've had some turnover on finance committee, so we want to make sure everyone's aware
Yeah,
of that.
beating that drum because they don't forget.
When is the finance committee?
We don't know yet. They haven't scheduled it.
I would guess in March sometime, so that they can the work and the warrant. So the capital improvement plan for last year, which is FY 25 through 29, had the phased approach. You know, each year had design, construction, design, construction, design. So we continued that with the SIP for FY 26 to 30. So yeah, but it's always good to remind them. We
You
could have
go
gone
for the
whole
whole
hog, as you say.
Yeah, we're not asking for $10 or $15 million all at once.
Yeah, and we would go nuts here. We're doing the whole four at once.
Right.
I think we'd have to close down. Yeah.
I think the key message is just that this is part of a very deliberate plan that's been in place for years, where we got strategic plan input. We analyzed that, figured out the highest priorities, got the study done at town meeting to figure out how to do this most efficiently. Brought in UTL, but I think emphasizing that process, that we're not just jumping into this, you know, that'll be an important narrative, especially to those finance committee members who may not be as familiar with the history.
And there was community input also as part of the
We
whole
had a survey.
Right.
strategy.
It's a data-driven process.
So on the fourth bullet under phase one, we've begun to meet on the staff side to come up with a plan, a timeline for all of the work that we have to do, so we don't get in the way of the start of construction, and also so that we think through everything that we have to communicate to our staff and our patrons, and accompanying timelines for that messaging, for all the issues that we need to we know will come up, and there may be some surprises, but I'm trying to think through everything. And then next Wednesday, week from tomorrow, I'll be attending the board meeting with Ella Benton here to talk to them about the opportunity to be involved in the financing of phase one, and the opportunities, the new neighborhood opportunities that may open up. Then just some pending items under building and grounds. Study room 3 will be painted this month. And then the floor in the delivery room, which is, you know, we're still waiting. It's not a high priority, but it's still there. And then the handicap access mechanism at the interior door at the Highland Street entrance. We're still waiting for outside contractor to come in and finish that.
No, I'm having a little hard time hearing down here. I think
Oh.
These vents are loud.
Sorry about that.
Thanks, sorry.
Moving on to financial reports, the state aid expenditure report. So the expenditures for the month of this year. And on the report, you can see the total expenditures so far for FY 25 and where we stand. You see, we still haven't touched a couple of the encumbrances, which is good for these two. FY 25 library salaries remains untouched, as well as the emergency contingency for phase one. But we are tapping into most. We'll see an aspect software invoice coming. So that planned spending is occurring on target. So trustees approved that plan.
What is the swing motion picture license? I assume it's for us to get movies, but for what purpose or?
It's a license so we can screen movies here at the library
Okay.
for public performance rights. Otherwise, we'd be sued.
Yeah, well, do you want to
Yeah,
comment?
Yeah, I can comment. We actually have 2 licenses. Swink is the one that, big one that we pay for, that gets most of the major studios. But there is also another license that we share partial expenses with the town on, and that gets us the rest of the studios supposed to be independent. So pretty much anything we show in this room is covered under that license, as long as we follow their rules on how we advertise, so we're good.
Great.
Just a similar license for music as well.
With single music one, unless it's having single ones.
That's through BMI. The trust fund expenditures here will get back to the trust funds with the spending plan for calendar year 25 later on the agenda. But listed here are the expenses, the most recent expenses for that, and we're on target with the spending as approved by the trustees against the trust funds. Statistical reports. This is the staff efforts for DIB. And then along with that, we have the occurrences listed of DIB issues in the items added to the collection of the past months. So you can see those listed here above the summary report of new items that were added to the physical collection December or in January. It's December's comparison. So you can see there for those numbers, we continue to lead the collection. It's just been overdue. And we're doing it in anticipation of all of the moving of collections we have to do. We're ready for phase one, but also future phases, phase two. And again, anything that's needed, we either share them with the friends for sale. You may have seen a lot of withdrawn items at the 3-day book sale recently, or we make some money by donating them to the vendor who gives us money. So nothing is on that. The operating budget. I don't think I talked about the operating budget. So briefly, if you see here, the $2.3 million budget, we're on target with where we're spending there. We've got a balance of almost 47% left. It's higher than normal just because of the unspent salary monies. So we will end this year with a surplus in salaries that will be returning to the town. But we are making use of some of that additional salary monies to offer some employees time to work on projects for the technical services department in helping with the leading. Because those are big projects and the staff and technical services still need to catalog everything. So our meeting, so we can put more stuff there and move stuff around. So luckily we have those extra funds we can make use of to offer some part-time people some extra hours.
We talk about the finance committee meeting.
Yes, I had that next underneath business.
Yep.
Okay. So last Wednesday at 7, we went before the finance committee to talk about the library's request for the FY26 operating budget. So as I may have mentioned at the last meeting or in an email to you, Kate's budget that she put together and submitted to the select board accepted our base budget and didn't make any cuts to it. But as she did with every other town department, she did not put forward any DSR4. And a DSR4 is a form that is filled out if you want additional staff or additional expense that's not already in your budget. So those weren't put forward. But the finance committee creates its own budget, as you know, to present to the town meeting. So that discussion went well. I think there are a couple of hiccups on the request to move $26,000 from library state aid that is spent on Overdrive Advantage into our operating budget, which Kate supported and agrees with. One question was, well, what are you going to use that 26,000 extra dollars in library state aid for? We don't know because we don't have the plan yet for trustees to review and approve FY26 spending, because this is the money we're receiving now in FY25 is for an FY26 spending plan. So the second payment arrives in late March, early April. So if that occurs, hopefully we're ready for the April trustees meeting to have a FY26 library city spending plan. So there's not a specific answer, except the answer that, typically the library trustees look to use that money to support innovative or new things that the library wants to try out. A couple of things in this fiscal year. We have spending to pay for Assabet, which is our new software that the study rooms and museum passes. It's an online reservation system for patrons and staff, and it's been well received and created efficiencies here, which is great. On the internal side, we have LibStaffer, which is a time management system and a scheduling system for staff, which is how we now schedule each department. So those are two relatively still new software packages. So those are this year being paid for at library state aid.
Did we submit additional information to finance committee yet?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, so they asked for the spending plan for this fiscal year that the trustees approved last summer, July, I believe. So that's been forwarded to them, and to Dave and Katie.
Did we include a cover letter about the uses of state aid?
Yeah.
Great.
We do have a policy, official policy, but we have a written state trustees statement about how we prefer to use.
Yeah.
Innovative.
One thing I thought we would get a pat on the back for was that the trustees set aside some money for phase one in the case of an emergency. But there was a question that, well, why wouldn't you come back to us for that extra money?
Yeah, this is
I thought, well, sure, but I thought trustees would get a good, rah
Yeah.
for like trying to help out or plan ahead, But overall, I think it went well, but there was the hiccup on the $26,000, so I'm not sure their take on that. They
They always
certainly
ask that.
understood that Overdrive, which is the app Libby, is just a basic service. We've had for over 10 years, and 20% of our checkouts last year were Overdrive checkouts, and 3,700 patrons used it last year. Needham residents and taxpayers, not all taxpayers, some kids, but it's just essential. It's no longer innovative or new. So they understood that, but so we'll see how that plays out. The other issue that we spent a lot of time talking about was one of our DSR fours, not the one for a full-time staff member and not the one for a part-time staff member, but the one for $4,835 for a new expense, which is to pay for the annual maintenance of the library's website, which is not formally in our budget, although we've paid for it out of our budget the past couple of years with leftover expense monies from other line items. But it's not formally in our budget. So it's a DSR 4 because that line item has never been populated with a figure.
Is there any thought to the fact that all of IT in the town is being consolidated in the school department, that all the websites are going to be consolidated in the school department as well, and it should go to someone else's budget?
I don't think this will, after what happened in 2020. The trustees and the library pulled away from the town's
It was a
website.
victory to have an independent website.
But we're not maintaining our own IT infrastructure, right? The school department is, right?
Right.
It's for the town and the schools. ITS is
Right, right,
works for both.
But that's IT. The website, we contract with a third-party company who maintains our website,
And the
which is
reason
independent
that,
from the town.
Okay.
library websites are so functionally different from the rest of the town websites that there's previously it was like trying to fit, a square peg into a round hole. And Sterling kind of provides the platform, and library staff work with them. That's kind of a thing that's come up in the past with state aid and
Yeah, we did at that time, as part, in order to get permission from the town to start our own website, Jay, Rob, and I were kind of on the forefront of that. We, we said at that time that we would pay for the annual fee. We agreed to do that. Now, we didn't necessarily agree to do that forever, but we did at that time,
And but when you say we agreed to pay,
the library.
okay, I thought because at some point, weren't the Friends and the Foundation sharing some of those costs or no?
At least initially.
Initially, they were.
I don't think it was an indefinite pledge.
But that's potentially your fallback if, I mean, it seems that we're at the point where it's properly a town expense, it's an essential element of what the library services are, but if it's not covered in the budget.
Right, so Kate hasn't put forward or approved any DSR for,
Yeah.
so
That's one of them.
I'm fine with that, bigger fish to
Yeah,
fry,
yeah.
blah, blah, blah. But the conversation went on and had to finally get into the whole history back to 2020 about how this came about, which I really didn't want
Yeah.
to go into because I don't think it shines a good light on the town.
Well, I don't know about that. They were ultimately
They let us
supportive.
do it.
They let us do it.
It's probably saved a lot of town IT time not having to constantly fix the website,
Yeah,
which they
they
used to
haven't had to touch it.
devote substantial resources. But in my mind.
But the
this kind of-
town's position is that the library and the Friends agreed to pay for the annual maintenance.
Forever?
No,
I don't think that was the understanding, but
No, I don't think there ever are perpetual pledges in library funding, but in my mind, this kind of goes in the same bucket as the overdrive expenses, where they really should properly be in our budget, and we go back year after year, and we will continue to go back year after year, because they are critical services to library patrons and really aren't properly part of the state aid budget. But in the interim, we do have that ability to fund it out of state aid.
So we'll continue to submit this as a DSR4. I think it's a basic operational expense
Yeah.
that the town should cover.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
It's just economics. Kate hasn't put forward any DSR4.
Yeah.
So
And
it's not
regarding
a,
the others,
so it wasn't a comment on whether or not this was good or not, but so it was just a long conversation about
about that
all of
small.
this that we knew something yet because Kate's not
They always-
approving any DSR4.
And regarding the other two DSR for the staff positions, how is that, I mean, how essential or not? The fact that those were not put forward is gonna.
One of them was for a part-time reference librarian slash young adult
I
specialist.
remember. Yeah.
Who, and those part-time hours would mean that we'd have a team librarian in the new team room every weeknight and
Yeah.
every Saturday. So now, if it doesn't move forward, so, we'll have to come up with a plan with our existing staff.
That's pretty.
And to let you know, Rob, they
Oh, sorry.
also budget cuts, that's why they cut time for librarians at the high school. And so if that, and it might be closed after school, or may not be open as much, so that maybe more influx of teens here. So it's also unfortunate we don't have the, potentially don't have library.
There wasn't real pushback on the two staff DSR boards.
They just
They
didn't go forward.
listened. Well, Kate hasn't put forward any, and
Is she
from what I
going to
understand-
do anything that she hasn't, mean she's not going to, or
Kate's budget that she
That's it.
put forward to the select board does not
Does not
include
do it.
the approval of any DSR four.
That's across every department in the town.
Again, we'll put in another DSR four.
Yeah, keep asking for it.
We'll have a whole, we'll have proof, we'll have videos. Lots and lots of things. Tuesday and Thursday nights and every Saturday.
You're gonna have to speak up a little while.
Okay.
I'm having trouble hearing you.
Sorry about that. So is the meeting. The next steps, I'm not sure. I think they probably vote on their budget at the end of their hearings. I'm not sure when that. So
Look at the schedule. And then they'll start the capital budgets for the warrant. Great, let's move on to the gift list.
we have two gifts for acceptance tonight to the permanent donation fund. $50 from Miranda Curry and $30 from Daniel Callahan.
Can I hear a motion to accept? Second?
Second.
Any discussion for these two generous gifts?
Thank you for the gift.
Yes, thank you. So we are now all in person. So we can do by acclamation. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, we accept the gifts. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, moving on to the trust fund spending plan.
So before you have the trust fund plan spending for this calendar year. Which shows $43,600, which is less than, if you look on the trust fund report in the packet, is less than the funds expendable amount. $44,006.44. So we're under that amount, which takes into consideration those trust funds which we're still giving breathing room to, and those that have enough interest that we can spend down on. So some changes from this calendar year to the proposed one for calendar year 25. The Macabre series, we've just lowered from 3,500 to 2,500 just on recent expenditures. We think that'll be enough for this calendar year. The dues for the MLTA, the board membership is $100. That's been lowered from 240 to 100. Materials for adults, teens, or children under Greenwood we've consolidated. For this year, we've had materials for adults, teens, or children coming out of 3 trust funds, totaling $28,500. So now we propose $31,000 spent between 2 trust funds based on available amounts to spend, the Greenwood and the Hatch funds. And then the other 2 line items are professional development from Greenwood, $6,000, and then Will Goose, $4,000. That's $10,000, which is a slight increase from this past calendar year. We had $9,260, so a $740 increase to professional development there. So that's the total of $43,600 for spending for this calendar year. We did get the interest payment information from the town this past fall. I think we talked about this in June or July, which is pretty late. So typically it's in January when we have this discussion at the start of the calendar year. We're 1 month late. So next year we have to be back on track where we should belong, which is January.
So you said we got the interest report. Do we know how much we're earning on the trust funds at this point?
So it was it listed on last month's report?
Yeah.
So January's report listed the interest amounts.
Okay.
They're now part of the balance on this report, so it's not called out, but I can send that out again.
Well, if it's on January, I can do that.
Yeah. But the interest amount available to spend on this sheet is from that document, that these amounts from 37,376 down to 5,500 are the amounts available from the earnings for us to spend.
Can you explain why those 2 numbers are different, why that 8,000 number is different from the 44,000 number.
So,
I'm just curious where the 14,000 went. I mean, if it is the interest, that's fine, but I'm still wondering where it is. So you said on the trust fund report, the amount that's available to spend when you add up all the encumbrance and stuff like that is 44,000. Yeah, in fact, that should be just.
Yeah.
But on this, it says it's 58,000. So where's the $14,000 difference?
so the 43,600 figure.
Right,
um,
that's what, that's.
Right, so on the trust fund report for
Mhm.
February, the figure we work off of is the funds expendable, the $44,006. We
No,
want to keep
yeah.
under that.
Yeah.
So there are some trust funds that have negative balances that charge against the 58,000, so that we want to be conservative to.
But aren't those negative balances what's then added up right there?
Right, so what's added up here, the positives and the negatives,
Right, no, I
total
understand.
the 44,000.
Right, exactly. I don't know if I'm asking my question correctly.
I think what you're asking is, why can't we spend more of that interest
I'm not
money?
asking, I just want to know
Okay.
where it is. I'm
So-
fine not. I just.
Because within each trust fund,
Mhm.
we are allocating some of that money to always remain in there and continue earning interest.
Mhm.
So depending on how the funds earn money,
Mhm.
that bucket we might become indebted to that bucket within the fund, where we have to leave more money in there to keep building interest.
And that's the non-expendable column.
Right.
Right.
So we have had, the report makes it look like money's going missing, but really what it is, like, we're continuing to build back up.
I think, are you looking at 3C, right? As compared, because 3C has a total
The
of
44, right, exactly, correct.
44,006.
Which is the funds expendable, which both have positives and negatives.
Right,
Or
with
negative.
also to all of the funds,
Right.
whereas I think the key difference might be in 5, that's just a subset of the funds, and funds that have positive balance. Because that's just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, they're listed in attachment number 5.
Mhm.
Attachment number 3C has, maybe a couple of dozen.
Yeah,
So I think it's just a different subset of the trust funds that are being added up for those totals.
Can I ask a slightly different question? Building off of this, which is, when we think about these funds, we read them out as individual names, but is it just one giant pot of money?
It is,
So
it is. It's all managed as one.
as one
Yeah.
group,
And the town's rules for retaining a non-expendable balance are different from what the trustees have voted at, which is also, some of the funds have yet another restriction.
yeah, so that's the answer to your question, is that this number on the trust fund spending plan that says 58
yeah,
is for all of those named trusts that we can spend from,
right.
without the money we're saving for all of the trust funds that we can't spend from.
No, I understand that. I'm
Yeah.
just curious why I still don't understand why there's a difference between those two numbers.
Well, are you looking at the trust fund report, the 3C
Mhm.
trust fund report?
Yeah.
And you're seeing all the ones in parentheses down that
I
way?
understand. No,
Yeah,
I understand that.
Yeah.
But those numbers also don't add up to a $14,000 difference. Because there's some ones that are negative 21,000. I mean, those all, I can see where the last two columns of that add up to about $44,000, right? What's balance expendable and encumbered, which is why there's a $44,000 that's available to spend. That's what adds up to that last column on page 2 of
yeah,
this. But then what I don't understand, and I'm fine not understanding, I'm just trying to put the question out there, is what is that $58,000 number that's on number 5 trust funds spending?
Right, that is the total of those 5 trust funds.
Right.
Right.
Of
Yeah.
the, of
Like, we could have come up with a plan to spend the 43,600 on all of the positive trust funds, so that, that available amount equaled like 43,600, and we're spending 43,000, but we're targeting on these 5.
Right, and that, again, maybe I just don't understand the accounting of it, which is
How
fine.
this can be higher than
Correct.
what's on here.
I
Correct.
think a related question is if a trust fund has a negative balance, right? Like the Henderson Fund has a negative 21,000 balance. Does that, in practice, does that limit what you can spend on other funds because it kind of draws down the total? I don't think that's how it's supposed to work, right? If you have a negative balance, that only impacts that fund in isolation.
I believe because they're all lumped together under the same, the town's umbrella for all trust funds as a whole. Right now, we are able to view this as balance expendable. There is still, the beginning balance is in there. It has been continuously, each of these funds have been continuously earning interest the entire time. So when we say balance expendable, even though there's numbers that are positive and negative, a better way to think about it is, can we touch this fund? And if not, how much time must pass, even though we're looking at dollar amounts?
Yeah.
So for Henderson, we have to continue to let that beginning balance recover to recoup investment losses. This also helps us identify which of the funds have been utilized more frequently or less frequently. When we look at how far back in time it goes, if someone were to donate $500 150 years ago, and we only draw $30 from it, I'm just picking very low numbers, then that has the potential to grow so much more. Whereas if we had a larger fund and we utilize more of it, that money misses out all that compounding interest. So some of these funds here, where we're showing them in a negative amount, that might be because there's one fund in particular that wants us to retain ever more interest. I believe that is the Henderson Fund, and that's why it's a notable example. We are supposed to be retaining 90% of the earned interest on any positive year and all of the loss on a negative year. So it might look like, oh, we're missing money, but really what it is it's an assignment for us to not tap that fund and let it recover until it has a positive balance, and then a positive enough balance for us to use it. We don't want to, we have a fund that has $153, and that's not well worth our time to choose something to purchase with it. It's better to let it sit and recover until the Henderson Fund is able to recover to meet past mandates to continue accruing the non-expendable balance.
Right.
Does that explain
makes
it
sense.
a little bit more?
I think so. But with the so for a fund that has a negative balance, would that negatively impact the aggregate amount that we could spend out for all of the remaining trust funds?
If every department that utilized trust funds in the town decided to do that, yes, that would. So a conservative approach is to let all of the money stay there and recoup. We're working right now. We don't know exactly how these funds might be shifting with the investment market. And with investments too, it always makes financial sense to let them sit and continue to accrue interest. If every department in the town were to spend all of their investments that they are able to spend, yes, there would be a negative impact if they were to identify a trust fund that needed more money there to recuperate. However, none of our trust funds are actually in the negative because we've never spent them all. Our spending mandate is to leave a sum there and continue growing it. Whenever there's market losses that are realized throughout the investment process, what we're doing is identifying the funds that we have to just like let grow more before we touch it.
Right.
So rather than view it as a fund that's in the negative, it's us identifying which funds need to grow more based on the history of the market and the mandates of that specific fund. And this is all designed to make sure that in the future there's money.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And I think in either case, the planned expenditures of 43,600 is still less than the lower
And that's what
total
we're,
fund
right.
fund expendable of 44,006.
Mm-hmm.
But thank you. I was just curious how those kind of all add up and whether we look at it in the aggregate for funds expendable or on a fund by fund basis.
Since we're still recovering from a bad year, to conservatively look at it as an aggregate to make sure that our spending patterns are designed to be healthy for all of our trust funds, that's the conservative way to do it.
Thank you.
Thank you for explaining that, Jennifer.
And the PDF, the permanent donation fund, is unique to this conversation.
Yeah.
So that $151,000 that's encumbered is the anonymous donation plus the check that we got from the friends. So that money is encumbered because it's given for specific purposes and will be spent for those
And that's
purposes.
not just those two donations, but all of the donations that you vote to accept, the $80 will be included in.
Right. But those two big ones are restricted to certain expenses.
I'm gonna ask that we put a motion on the table, and we can have further discussion if we want. Can I have a motion to approve this calendar year 2025 trust fund spending plan? Second?
Second.
Great. Further discussion on this spending proposal? All right, moving to a vote then. All those in favor to approve this plan, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Passed unanimously. All right, moving forward, we have a new library policy to review. This is children in the library. It may be renamed according to the revisions. So I'll hand it over to those of you that are proposing the change.
Yeah, so Megan and Rob met on this, so I was looped in, but I would defer to them.
Great. If I can just start by just referring to the timeline. You can see we sort of jumped over the creation of the team room policy and the creation of photography and filming in the library policy to go to children library, which is a 2B priority, which references next year. But the issue came up that we wanted to address this earlier, and we've started to meet internally on the other two policies to create those, but need more time. So we're presenting this revision here. So Megan and I met a couple weeks ago, I think, to talk about the current children in the library policy and some ideas about revising it. And that's what's presented to you tonight. So the reasons for revision for this, we wanted to add language that was absent from the current policy about the minimum age required in order to supervise children in the library. We also wanted to remove language that referenced internal procedures or other policies. We wanted to have better organization and clarity, and then we wanted to improve the tone of the same policy. As you can hear my tone, that it was a little something. So Megan and I had a good meeting, and I think we saw eye to eye on what we wanted in the revised policy, and that's before you, which is just to reference the meat of the matter, which was when can kids be in the library by themselves or with a caregiver, and how old does that caregiver have to be, or how old does that kid have to be in the library by him or herself. So it starts with
Robert, before we move, can I just ask a quick technical question? Why are there two exact copies of this in the email? There's a PDF and a Word document.
last month Jay asked for a Word document, so it's
If we wanted to
easier.
fiddle
Oh,
with
okay.
it, if you wanted to mark it up while you're reviewing it, a doc makes it easier.
Oh, that's totally, I just wasn't sure if there's like a difference between, I couldn't find a difference between them, so I was wondering why there were two.
It's not a puzzle. We use it all.
Um, So this has an opening paragraph that talks about the welcoming environment we hope to create for all. The last sentence, we talked about the responsibility that caregivers have for monitoring their children's safety, activities, and behavior while visiting the library. And then the next two paragraphs, we delineate the children by ages and when they need to be directly supervised by a responsible person, and what that means, age 13 and up, which was absent before in the existing policy. And then children aged 10 and up may be in the library unattended, but we wanted to include there that those children must be able to understand and adhere to all of our policies, including the appropriate patron behavior policy. And that wanted to put in just a note that we are not supervising their children when they're here, as some caregivers think that that's our job or what we do.
Is the policy posted in the,
Is the current policy,
or at least perhaps this one perhaps should be?
the current policy is available and is distributed to parents on a
On-
daily basis. I don't know that it's on a wall in the children's room. But the children's staff use it to have discussions.
Because this is so short and sweet, it might be easy enough to have it posted somewhere on the desk or in the room. If you think that would, if it's the sort of issue that would be helpful. I don't know.
The proposed revision is short and sweet.
That's what I
The
mean.
original is not.
No, but
Yeah.
I'm talking about the proposed
This is
revision.
much,
Yeah.
much cleaner.
So there's things that are missing from the revised policy that are in the existing policy, but they're not going away. So they are going into internal procedures, and in the past, we've included internal procedures following the revised policy, but it's the internal procedures that are in the existing policy that are coming out are not complete internal procedures, so I didn't want to put something incomplete here. We'll be working with staff on a complete list of internal procedures related to this issue. What's also absent are references to themes or issues that are covered by other policies, like appropriate patron behavior policy or collection development policy. So we don't need to reference that here. Really wanted to just get down to what we're talking about, which is a safe child policy.
Becky, do you have any additional comments to add?
No, I mean, I have some comments on the draft, which I hadn't given before, but we don't have to get into that. No, this, Rob said it, we agreed the tone wasn't really what we're going for. We took out a lot of the extraneous information and got down to the meat of it, which in my mind is, library disclaiming liability for kids in the library, parents are responsible, or caregivers, regardless of age and what's going on. So I have some comments about shoring those things up, but making it clear about the ages, I think is also good. So yeah, I'm happy with the draft as it.
I like the new title.
I do have one comment. In the old policy, the second to last bullet point about parents who wishing their children to have access to certain type of materials. I'm wondering, especially in this day and age of people complaining about what's in libraries and people trying to, get on boards or town meetings or whatever to have certain things banned and stuff like that. If that should be part of the policy, so that you can point to them and say, this is the policy, it's your responsibility to make sure your children don't have access to quote pornographic material or whatever.
Yeah, so that's one of those issues which points to another policy. So our collection development policy covers that.
Does it need to be referenced in this policy then?
To me, it muddies the water about what this policy is about, which is just about children in the library, not their use of the library, whether or not it's behavior or the collection.
I think,
But it will,
I think it's
but
a
we
fair
are
point that
revising.
may
both
be
of
interpreted
those.
differently by.
What's that, I'm sorry?
I said, I think it's a fair point that you raised, that might be interpreted differently when they look at like a safe child
Yeah.
library policy.
My child doesn't sit because they have access to pornographic material.
Right.
You do say,
Quote,
the
unquote,
child must remain in the same room within view.
But that's for
So-
age 9, that's only for up to age 9. Over,
Right.
over age 10, they can do whatever they want.
Which I have an issue with the view part of it, since, get it in the letter, then, my very responsible 8-year-old playing on the computers in the upper part of the children's one, and my less responsible 5-year-old in the play area, I can't see both at one time, so I would take view out. Somehow it would just make that a little softer. Well, also if I had to chase the little one out and leave the other one and come back, or if I had to pop into the bathroom with one and not the other. That was really kind of about that. So it's about your part, Josh. I think we could address it broader. It's sort of the last paragraph of the first, or the last sentence of the first paragraph. I would say all caregivers and not Needham Free Public Library are responsible for their children's safety, activities, and behavior while visiting the library, which in my mind is broad enough to cover whatever materials they might access. I would take out monitoring because I think that conflicts with the unattended children part. You can't monitor if you're not here. And then I'm curious of other thoughts as to whether that'd be broad enough to cover everything. I want to make it clear it's the parents, not the library, who is responsible for children whenever they're in
Well,
there.
so I guess my question is, to that point, is because based on this policy, caregivers can theoretically be a 14-year-old babysitter,
Mhm.
but they're not going to be responsible for keeping the 9-year-old or 10-year-old away from quote, inappropriate material.
Mhm.
But they
need to-
actually
they
they
should
are.
be
in the area to make sure that this child.
If the
is
parent or
not
guardian
accessed.
is putting the 14-year-old in care of their 8-year-old,
That's a
Yes.
responsibility.
Yes, if the parent chooses to have a 14-year-old overseeing.
it's
and-
totally on the parent. It's not
Yeah.
our responsibility at all to monitor what children are checking out or looking at.
And so I do wonder whether, as Megan was just saying, to say, all caregivers and not the Free Public Library staff are responsible for their children's, then we have this list, safety, activities, behavior while visiting the library. Is there some word we can add that does suggest that we include the materials they are looking at?
Does the library already have, if somebody's looking at something inappropriate, there's already a mechanism for people to kind of view it from, like in the reference area where the computers are. They can see what you're, something comes up.
I'm not talking about computer stuff. A lot of this stuff, like the arguments about like book banning and
Mhm,
all that
yeah.
stuff is people are taking out books or like there are things on the shelves that are clearly not pornographic or clearly not inappropriate to you and I, but to other people, they consider those things pornographic or inappropriate. And so like, there's no way to monitor someone walking into the fiction section and pulling something off the shelf. Right. So yes, it's true. I mean, I'm sure the computers here have filters that block, pornographic sites.
Right.
But that's different than physical stuff that you can pull off the shelf.
Well, wouldn't that just kind of further the argument that if some child is going to have somebody, you have to have someone responsible for that child as opposed to it being a staff member.
Oh, yeah, no, I agree with that. It should not be the staff member's
Exactly.
responsibility. I'm just wondering if the policy should explicitly say that is not the library's responsibility.
Yeah, or just do it the way that Megan.
Yeah, I would think
Yeah.
activity would cover under it. I think one thing that might address some of the confusion that Josh has is how we refer to caregivers. So we use a lot of different phrases and, I'm not saying legally we should put a defined term in, but we have supervised by a responsible person. That could be your 14-year-old. We have caregivers and then we have parent or guardian. So I think if we're consistent with parent or guardian and say, all parents or guardians are responsible for, or we just use caregiver, whatever works. but just have that be clear. And I can see where calling it out here maybe too much. I think the last policy, we got it a little too much of calling out specific stuff everywhere. I would argue activity is broad enough to cover that. And I would think we would have a safe argument to point it back to here, but I'm open to discussion on that for sure, if we think it's a thing.
So you're saying you think the word activity is broad enough to cover viewing of inappropriate material?
Yes.
I wonder whether that is, or we should be a little more clear about that.
Rob, you had a thought?
Yeah, I mean, in that sentence, and I think a lot of this comes down to that last sentence of the first paragraph. By the way, I do like this policy, and I like the fact that it's streamlined and readable and has a good tone while giving staff discretion to interpret situations as they see fit. But for that one sentence, what if we say instead of all caregivers, parents and guardians being responsible? Because ultimately, if you have an unsupervised child in the library, this sentence should still apply, that ultimately parents and guardians are still responsible, maybe not for monitoring if they're not there, but they're responsible for their children's safety, activities, and behavior, regardless of whether or not they're present. And that would be more of a parent guardian responsibility rather than a caregiver who might just be there temporarily. As to whether, and this is my thought, if material, checking out materials falls under activities, I mean, I think there's a good argument that it does. If we want to be clear in that, we could. I don't know if that invites just further scrutiny. That would be my concern, but.
I mean, we added a phrase like "and viewing of materials." Do we feel that that would draw, like you say, draw unwanted attention?
I mean, it's one of the core activities of being in the library.
It is a core activity. So, okay, so.
Like looking at the stuff.
That's what you do.
Yeah.
So, okay.
But I do think that there is this issue of terminology.
Yeah.
That several people have raised. And in the first paragraph, we refer to these folks as caregivers. In the second paragraph, we refer to them as responsible persons and parent or guardian or person designated by parent or guardian. So there's 3 different ways that we describe the person that is monitoring the child. And we should probably consolidate that.
Keep it the same.
But if we were to use parent and guardian, or parent or guardian, I just wonder if when we're talking about age 13 or up, does guardian seem to apply to a
Parent, guardian, or
13-year-old?
caregivers. Did that work?
Well, I think Megan was noting the fact that maybe we don't need to define a particular term in this, but maybe we do. If we want to have a tone that suggests caregiver, then we need to define what a caregiver is in the policy and then use caregiver.
Well, I think if we do what Rob said, parents and guardians, and then the second paragraph, I think clarifies it, that says supervised by a responsible person who is either a parent or guardian or a person designated by a parent or guardian. And then that one is responsible person, which is a different thing. And then parents and guardians of child left alone, then it is parents and guardians in the end there too.
Well, so responsible person is defined.
Yeah.
Caregiver is not defined.
Right, I would take caregiver out.
Yeah.
And just
In
do
the
parent
last sentence of the first
at the
paragraph,
first one, yeah.
replace that with parents.
Yeah,
or guardian.
all parents and or guardians are
Parent, guardian, or responsible person.
No, you don't even need it. I would
not
put
responsible
person.
person, because it's still the parent or guardian.
Right, theoretically, the parents or guardians are the ones that are the responsible person.
Ultimately, Harry.
Yeah, but they could designate a responsible person.
Right. Or
The
they're
parents are
watched,
still
But not to be the
ultimately,
one that's responsible for their activities.
exactly, yeah.
Right.
So that's confusing then. So would we then drop monitoring in
Yeah.
your formulation?
Yes,
That's
They're responsible.
Yeah.
Okay.
just make it clear. Parents and guardians responsible for kids in the library.
Yeah.
For everything they do in the library, not the librarians. So
We say and not the library.
whether we want to add the and not the staff, which could maybe,
Like put a parenthetical or something like that.
Isn't that in the last?
it's in the last one, which just says cannot provide supervision, and I I want the disclaimer of liability to be clear.
Yeah,
Okay,
Parents responsible, not the staff, which is what I think we can keep it keep the cannot provide supervision, because I think that's important as well. So I would just, that last sentence in my draft would read, all parents and or guardians and not the Needham Free Public Library staff are responsible for
you're talking about the last sentence of the opening paragraph.
first paragraph,
Right.
yeah.
yeah,
And then I don't know, grammatically might need to. Yeah, either
Yes.
parenthetical or offset it by commas, so you know
Yeah, that
that the
makes
there
sense.
refers back to the parents and guardians, not the staff.
because the last paragraph is also referring to the children aged 10 and up.
Yeah.
And so we're not expecting libraries have to either be supervising those folks either.
Exactly, we
Right, so
want
that's
to make
good.
sure that that's clear in there too.
Okay,
And then I would somehow massage the last sentence of the second paragraph just to be a little softer. Still want parents within the vicinity of children 9 and under, just without being so strict that in the
So within-
setup of the children.
Like what if you're
Within-
here, what if you're here for like a toddler program and your 7-year-old is like sitting in the children's section reading a book or something?
Right. Or playing on the computers
Right.
or whatever.
Yeah, it does, if you're, the question of coming with more than one child does raise a problem with being
Was there
within view.
anything behind this sentence or?
So can you read what yours is?
I'm not sure I have
I'm
specific
just
language for it.
concerned about if it's not within view, then it's opened up to
Yeah, I don't want to
a
just take it out.
2-year-old
Um,
being
Mm.
in the
Out
of
puppet
view.
area
Yeah.
and the
Right.
parent goes to the bathroom or like,
does it work if we say something about them being aware of what the child is doing at all times, as opposed to being in view?
Or within the same,
I know, I left my
Area.
child playing with the blocks. I was aware they were playing with the blocks while I.
This is
went
my
to
question, that's
look
why I
at the
raised
world
it. I
languages
don't know if
Right.
it solves that.
Like,
We already have in the first sentence directly supervised. You know,
What if you said vicinity instead of view? Is that too vague?
do you need that last sentence if they're responsible for directly supervising them in the first sentence?
Or is directly supervised?
yeah,
It means,
I mean, you can't be in two places at once, you have two kids there, you were not directly, not directly supervising both of them.
so
at
just
the
delete.
exact-
the
Unless they're
second
doing the same
sentence.
thing.
Or
Sounds
within
That seems to work.
Get rid of
easy, easy access to the child, or,
Yeah.
maybe there's a different phrase with, same room within direct access.
But I think Megan's arguing they shouldn't even necessarily have to be in the same room.
Maybe they should, I mean, the only thing that I wouldn't say same, because then if you're in the bathroom, is that a different room? But I think within vicinity might be.
I don't know
good.
that
I think the
going
expectation
to the
is
bathroom means you're no longer directly supervising somebody.
they're not in the
Do you
bathroom
even
with
need the
you.
word directly? Can you just say must be supervised by a responsible
Yeah.
person?
But I
I
think
don't know, I think you can't leave your child, you have to, if you go in the bathroom,
That's
you have
not
to take your
true.
kid with you.
That's absolutely, I don't think that's true. If your 5-year-old is sitting there reading a book for 2 minutes while you run
Yeah.
and pee,
especially
No,
in the
I
children's area.
personally think you need to take your kid with you.
I think it really depends on the kid, having
yeah,
had
exactly. So you
one
have-
child.
kid
A
who
nine,
ran
a
it.
9-year-old?
One
I don't
child
think you
not.
think you do.
No, yeah, my 8-year-old would
Yeah,
be
8 or
sitting there
9-year-old,
playing with
yeah.
me
That's
fine.
true, well, that's the problem. yeah.
But then again, I don't know, it just seems a little rigid. I think vicinity might work. I think something else a little softer, but I get it. And I think for the most part, we're intending that these kids are gonna be in the children's room area, or children's section anyways.
A lot of times you'll see that there's something going on down here in the children's room, and they might have 2 10-year-olds playing a video game on the computers, but you'll see the parent periodically come up and down the stairs to check on them, or a child, they have a cell phone and they'll call them and tell them to get up and leave. But it's almost it's an untenable situation just based on logistics of where if a parent is with a smaller child down here and has still minor children that are upstairs involved in something.
That's okay here, because if they're 10 and up, that's fine.
Okay,
Yeah, so it's just the under 9, which 9 and under, which,
Jay, sorry,
that's okay, no, go ahead.
have the idea if we just strike the second sentence and leave the first, because it says must be directly supervised,
Mhm.
that just covers it.
I think that works.
What? I don't-
Taking out the must remain in the same room sentence.
Just pick that out.
Relying on the directly supervised in the first sentence.
We're at about 20 minutes of discussion here, which is kind of how we were trying to,
Mm-hmm.
I can make these.
we're not voting tonight.
Right,
Right.
So,
for the next meeting.
any last minute?
Just, any desire or need to let parents know whether they need to be, attend programs or not? That's, if they bring their child to a story time or other program, do they need to be there? Can they drop off their child and go browse the library or elsewhere? Do you need to say anything about that?
Gail, it's like,
I will.
That was a
As
quick one.
someone who was a children's librarian for 19 years, unless it is designed specifically just to be your child with a librarian, most of the programs do require that there be an adult or a guardian in that room so that they are able to do the program without having to be responsible for
Yeah.
being the enforcer for bad behavior.
So does that, do we need to say anything about that in here or not? Or is
No,
that gonna
but-
be in the behavior policy or something?
They really can't leave the kid, just put it that
They
way.
can't leave the kid,
No,
but
they
do the
can't.
parents know that?
They
Do
should.
we need to have that?
Well, I mean, this is,
Like being a
0 to 9 must be directly supervised,
Yeah.
10 and up can be in the library unattended as long as they can follow and understand our policies, which include the appropriate patron behavior policy.
Mhm.
Right.
Okay.
Where did you arrive at the 10?
It's currently what the policy is here at the library. How did we come to it?
Reasonably arbitrary?
What's also
Well-
statutory, according to the second
right,
paragraph
according to the
of the
second,
old policy.
Which was
Abandonment.
Was it?
It was,
I went and
Yeah,
read
was
that,
not
that law, that does not
accurate.
apply.
it's more like, yeah,
You have to abandon a child for
weeks.
4 weeks.
Not-
to
not-
actually-
Oh, really?
Yeah, you have to be in a contract.
yeah,
for them to
Massachusetts is one of
care.
those laws that actually
care
does,
for
is one of
it.
those states that actually has fairly decent, you can let your child go play outside and walk around.
Oh, we have pretty good free range.
We have pretty good free range laws.
Free range children?
Great.
in the state.
And we don't need anything about the adults lurking in
Yes, I was
children's
gonna say
programs.
too.
or
That'll
the-
be in the appropriate page.
I'm sorry,
Okay.
adults lurking.
Behavior,
Yeah,
yeah. It
can
was-
an
That's
adult
what I'm
be in
calling the
chi-
second,
can
the last
an adult
paragraph,
be in
bullet
child's
point on the
room,
first page.
Unattended.
Without children? Can I go in there? and-
Sure, what if you're going and take out a book for your kids or your grandkids or whatever? Why
I guess
not?
that would be the opposite of the safe child.
It's
the
about
adult
programs
lurking
in
policy.
that,
Yeah,
in that bullet point. And then the other one was about liability. That's covered elsewhere.
Which one?
The last bullet point in the
Oh,
whole
yeah,
whole
Damage
policy.
Yeah.
of-
That's
Yeah,
covered
that's
by
the-
the,
And I
by
go-
that one sentence saying
There's some special-
responsible for the activities and behavior.
Okay, great.
Okay. That's a good
Um,
Is the unaccompanied, or does that say unattached? Let me look at this again. Unattended, I'm
Unattended.
sorry. So if they have to have some kind of contact information to get a hold of their parent, how do we?
how
Because
do
the
you prove
parents.
that they have it?
Yeah,
Trust the parents
Just
are
ask-
responsible for it.
Just ask
Yeah,
when you
okay.
need to contact the parent or guardian.
okay.
yeah, we're not gonna go around and quiz 10-year-olds. Like, but if it's like 9 o'clock and we're closing and they're standing there, then,
Yeah.
even before 9 o'clock, we can engage in the conversation and
Do you have a ride home?
call.
Not-
In that
And
sentence, Rob, I would just change that from the unattended child to unattended children. The very last sentence there.
The very last sentence, yeah.
Yeah,
For what it's worth, I'm not too concerned about if there, the literal interpretation of this rule would sometimes lead to people being outside the bounds. There still is a great degree of staff discretion in enforcement of policies, and presumably that's exercised. I'm sure I've probably been outside the literal bounds of the existing policy, just based on some of the ways that it's drafted. So I'm not too concerned about,
So you're saying we could leave the language like the child should be in view in with this assumption that's not gonna be like super strictly enforced, but the goal is that you should be within view of your.
No, I think we struck that sentence.
I think, yeah, we struck that sentence. I think that was a good.
I think the
change.
directly
Makes it
supervised,
clear.
I'm okay with it in, given Rob's comment about it. you
For
know,
what it's worth, in Newton, they say within the same department.
Yeah,
I think we have a good,
Good discussion.
good set of edits, and we can, if we agree on the policy next meeting, we can vote on it. Turning to old business, we have a 3D printer policy to withdraw. So just a reminder, we're not editing this policy, we're just withdrawing it, because we don't have a 3D printer that the public can access that would be the policy. I want to put the motion on the table to withdraw the 3D printer policy. Can I get a second?
Second,
Any discussion? All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Passes unanimously. Withdrawn. One less link on the website. So, moving then to Library Art and Exhibits Committee.
Yes, so we have nothing to vote on this month. We still have Robert Shetterly's wonderful exhibit, America Can Tell the Truth, up for a short time. And then we will move on next month to Alfred D'Angelo, which we voted on last week, paintings in oils and graphite. We currently do have the Gay Ellen recruited Berlin Chow fabric origami, who has these very exquisite pieces up in the front cases, which I'm always happy when we have our front cases filled. So everybody should go take a look at her beautiful little exquisite pieces. And then coming up is in April, Needham Open Studios in the both wall and cases, and May is Needham High School Scholastic Art Award winners on the wall and studio. So that's it through May, and we'll have to meet again to begin. We have, I guess, June and July, possibly August. It's a little fuzzy, but maybe not August. Yes.
Jay and I were giving someone a tour of the library this morning, and a patron stopped us and came up to say how extremely happy he was about the Robert Shetterly
Oh.
exhibit, how he's learned so much and
Wow.
was really grateful.
It is
That's
a
so
beautiful
cool.
exhibit, you know, if anyone hasn't seen it yet, it's really great
They're really
stuff.
high quality, and the thing is, he has 250 or 80 of these, and so we could do it again in a couple years and bring in a whole new set of those really impressive portraits and wonderful stories behind them.
I think it's had a sort of impact we'll never know about.
Yeah, that's true. And there's more. Okay, good. So that's it for, I guess we are at some point going to be reviewing the Arts and Exhibitions Committee policy. So that's a policy that's on our list, but not coming up quite yet.
Thank you. McIver series?
No update at the moment. Got a couple of leads for program later this spring. We're working on that, and hopefully we'll have that locked down by the next meeting in March.
Great. Friends of the Library? Jay?
They had a tremendously successful book sale this past weekend. If you went, it was jam-packed some of the time. It was really a bit of a scene. I haven't heard the final details on the numbers, but I know it was
Very 69.
about almost $7,000, 6,900.
Nice.
So very successful, very impressive effort.
Jay, when I worked Sunday, that people said they had never seen it so crowded on
Oh,
Friday.
really?
On Friday, it was unbelievable.
Yeah.
I usually come on the weekend when it's calm. I went on the Friday for a change. It was really quite a scene.
Because on Fridays, all the vendors
The
come in.
vendors come. But it was busy on Sunday too.
Not quite as busy from what I understand. They did not get the sales they thought they were going to get.
Oh, is that right?
Sunday.
Uh-huh.
But the staff I worked with on Sunday said that they were there Friday and it was hopping.
the parking lots were full.
The Friends had a speaker that was postponed because of weather. Yeah. And it was rescheduled. I forget exactly what day it was rescheduled for, but
February 23rd.
So
And who's the speaker?
Dr.
Ted
Ted
Lansmark.
Ted
Oh, okay.
Lansmark,
Oh, yes.
Oh, she's locked out.
Ted Lansmark.
He has that iconic picture of being hit with the American flag.
Oh,
Bus.
yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah. She's a friend of mine.
Yes.
Yes.
Library Foundation? Or you still have friends?
no, not much more to report. And the foundation has a board meeting next week. It's worth mentioning that I guess they were the sponsor of this Shuttley,
Yes, the friend, the
foundation
foundation
was,
definitely, they were.
so
kind
they
enough
should be
to-
proud of that.
Somewhat.
And anything on your
Your friends, the April social.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, let's talk about that. There was suggested by Lois Bacon of the Friends that it might be a good idea to have some sort of get together. I think some of them felt honestly that they hadn't met some of the trustees. And so I think we have a plan in place for representatives of the Friends and the foundation to meet with us. What are the details about it?
Wednesday, April 9th at 6 p.m.
Okay.
before the 7 p.m. meeting.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
okay.
a reminder, in April, we always meet the day after town election, because the town election happens on the second Tuesday. And so it'll be the second Wednesday is when we'll have our meeting. And we're looking at right before that to get together with friends in the foundation.
Did you say April 9th, or are we talking about April?
You're meeting April,
April
you're
9th.
meeting Wednesday, April 9th.
But the election is the.
8th.
I'm not.
Election is the 8th,
Yeah, the election is the 8th. Okay. That I did.
because the first Tuesday is the first.
Okay, and so we would need the 9th and the.
I don't know what has to happen in terms of an invitation, or
We'll work it out.
we'll work it out.
Don't worry,
Good.
Yeah, we'll figure that out.
Okay.
but it should be nice.
Stay tuned.
And also. just
Light
to say-
refreshments, so no dinner.
Heavy
So
apps.
we know, the trustees, I think that we want to be, reach out to the Friends and reach out to the LFN and tell them, how valuable they are to the library and really, let them know that we support their missions and appreciate their missions. I mean, I think in part that's our role, is to try to help them know that they're part of the fold and we appreciate what they do and, kind of an embrace of sorts.
Okay,
If you want to do a direct support for the foundation, they are sponsoring their own program event. They're organizing it. It will be on April 10th. Still waiting for a start time. They're bringing in Judith Kalora, who will be doing her presentation of Rendezvous with Rachel Revere. They're sending it out to their main supporters and opening up for other things. So that would be something, if you wanted to show support for next week for them, that would definitely be something. to go
Okay.
to.
It-
It should be hopefully up on the website. I'm hoping after next week, they'll give me confirmed information so I can post it.
Good idea.
So moving to trustee comments. I believe we have a few trustee comments this evening.
See, so,
yeah,
yep,
sorry.
go ahead.
Rob mentioned that we gave a tour this morning. I introduced him to Greg Reedman, who's an old friend of mine, who's the chair of the Charles River Regional Chamber of Commerce. And I thought it'd be useful to have, connections, and it was a very nice meeting. Greg was, Rob, I saw places in the library I'd never seen before. Rob gave Greg a great tour. Greg offered, if it would be helpful in connection with the request for town meeting, if a letter from the chamber in support of our request
Of our
for
team,
of the team, the funding and all that, if he would be happy to provide us with such a letter.
Oh.
So,
that's nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
I think we will accept.
right,
Yeah.
It was a great meeting.
very good, yeah.
He seems to be a guy who understands the importance of libraries and wants me to do it, so.
And, among other things, he should put the word out that in particular, I know folks at the foundation are looking for some new members and you might come across people and
Mhm.
Rob
In the
mentioned
chamber. who are-
the chamber, he may know folks, related to the Needham Chamber, and Rob also mentioned, among the other things going on will be the potential naming rights related to the new teen area, so it's worth having it in his head in the world that he's operating in to see maybe
The local
there may be
business
any other
community.
opportunities.
Yeah,
Correct.
very
Of course.
How do you spell his last name? Jess?
REIBMAN.
Sorry to interrupt.
His first name?
Greg.
Greg.
Forward you his email from this morning because there's a fireside chat March 21st with Kate Fitzpatrick and Ruth Ann Fuller.
Oh, okay.
It's the day of our staff development day, so I won't be able to go, but if you were interested, I forwarded that email to you. It's at the bottom of the email.
Oh, okay. Look at that.
Other trustee comments?
I just wanted to mention that the election is coming up. I am running again, and I won't speak for Rob, but I understand that he also
Certainly, yeah.
planning to. It looks like we have several, at least 2 other people who may be running as well. So it'll be a lively election season for us. And so we will be appearing at the Legal Women Voters Election Candidates Night and be on stage to give our little short spiel. So anybody who wants to come, that's March 24th. And so we'll hope for lots of clapping and stomping of feet when Rob and I appear on stage.
Do you have any forms for us to sign? We're
Rob does.
I
I'd be
do.
happy
I've
to
done mine.
sign.
But it's great to have interest in this position.
Yes.
And
Yes.
look forward to the spirit.
And it's great that you're running for reelection.
Oh, okay.
On March 24th at 7 o'clock is the candidates night. All support welcome. And so that was that. And I don't know if you want to mention.
We're going to participate again in the Needham Education Foundation's trivia night. And so we've cobbled together a team and the friends were very generous in footing the cost for participation.
At Needham High School.
Yeah.
So we have a 6-person team. It's a combination of
Yeah.
staff, just you and me, right?
Yeah.
And-
I would have offered, I would have got pretty happy.
Oh.
Really? You were?
Wow.
Oh,
I
we're gonna
enjoy
find
trivia.
that.
Well, I don't know,
We
what's
can
the
make
max
another
team
team,
size?
Josh.
Is it 6?
We can make another team site.
Yeah, it's unfindable, unfortunately.
So you think?
It's
And
not,
Is
so
there
I can
anybody
tell you
on our
after.
team who really doesn't, is just kind of the arm?
Well,
their arm was
we have an
twisted?
alternate then.
That's right, exactly.
We have an alternate.
Let me know.
Okay.
I love trivia.
It goes like this, we get
I'll be on your
call in
team.
the bullpen my place.
I'm dumb at this.
So Rob, you're doing it? You are? You're
And
not.
Gay,
Yeah.
Gay.
Andy from Tech Services, who's on the team last
Oh,
year,
Yep.
and Ginny
And Judy, okay. Those
from
three.
Circulation.
And
Kate was on last year too, right?
Yeah,
Or
it's been
2
a few
years?
years since I
Yeah.
last was on it, but I've been on it before. And for multiple years, I was on the spelling bee team and on our team winners teams.
But I do remember last year there was a vacancy, somebody brought their boyfriend, so.
Yeah, so we do, it
So
does
sometimes-
happen. It does happen where we need pinch hitters, Josh.
What's that, I'm sorry?
So definitely keep that night open.
Last night.
Because
last night
we have had to
an
have,
opening, and, somebody brought their
folks-
boyfriend along, so.
March
fill in our
12th,
team.
I will put it on. So,
Great.
What time does Friday meet up?
That's 7.
7 p.m.
Everything's in set.
Any other comments? All right, can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? We are adjourned.
Thank you.